You know, it's been a good long while since I've done a collab on this channel with a bunch of creators. So I decided to round up a few of them and do a part 3 to a video series about games that we think deserve a sequel. And I figured, fuck it, I should make this one the last one in the series, because I feel like a 3-parter is a perfect ending to this. Before we get started, I want to take a minute here to say thank you to everyone who joined me on this. I'll be leaving all their channel links in the description down below. Nah, I'm fucking lying, I'm leaving them in the pinned comment, it's easier to find them that way. And without further ado, let's get into the part 3 finale of games that me and many others think deserve a sequel. So, I figured I'd start us all off here by talking about my pick for a game that I think deserve a sequel. And with as many RPGs as I play nowadays, I had a ton to pick from. But there's one in particular that I think deserves it a bit more than the others, and that's Child of Light, a turn-based RPG published by none other than Ubisoft of all people. You know, back in the day when this company was known for more than just their Assassin's Creed titles and their AAA, excuse me, I mean quadruple A levels of quality. And as you can see, yep, that's some quadruple A quality right there. But while as time has gone on, this company has kind of transformed into just a giant laughingstock. It's become very easy to forget that there were some absolute fucking bangers that they were making back in the day. And while I don't think Child of Light was something that ever reached their highest highs, it's definitely a game that I don't really think deserves to slip under the cracks as much as it has. Not only does it come with this immensely charming looking art style, where everything being created on screen just looks like a children's fairy tale storybook, which in comparison to a lot of AAA big budget titles, has allowed it to keep its own sense of style wholly unique, and age like a fine wine in the graphics department. Alongside this, it also had a genuinely fun combat system that, while admittedly it was rather simple in comparison to a lot of the other big budget turn-based games that have existed up until then, it was still immensely fun to play around with, especially during the boss fights. And honestly, that brings me to the reason why I wanted to get a sequel so much. The first game is such a solid blueprint for an absolutely incredible sequel to take place. Like, imagine a Child of Light 2 where you could utilize concepts like team attacks based off of who was in your party working together, or evolving the game's skill tree to where it could do things like entering other characters' skill trees, so other characters could learn skills, like a healer learning more damage-based skills, or the mage being able to increase its strength. There's just this giant wealth of potential to take the combat basically anywhere they want after the first game. And this also ties into that story as well. Child of Light's narrative was very basic at its core, and while that isn't exactly a bad thing, it would be nice if a sequel decided to be more ambitious with its narrative. And if they, for some reason, don't want to continue the story they set up in the first game, how about another idea I have? Why not just make RPGs based off of other storylines for storybooks? Imagine something like a Hansel and Gretel RPG, or a Little Red Riding Hood one. Storybook characters in general don't really get used for a lot of stuff outside of movies, so taking the chance to do a full storybook series of RPGs would actually be great, because there's just such an open market for it. I mean, wouldn't you pay money to see the 3 little pigs kick the absolute fuck out of the big bad wolf? I know I would. Sadly though, I don't think we'll ever see a sequel. Modern Ubisoft just doesn't seem to have much of an interest in doing more unique projects and wants to stick to its big budget stuff, or maybe the occasional South Park game. Which is a damn shame, because maybe, just maybe, if they decided to take a step back from those big titles and focus on their smaller ones, they could make something genuinely special out of it. But I've said my piece on that, so now I'm going to start passing it over to all the other lovely people I decided to collab with today. Have fun with them, and I'll see you again at the end.
Hey everyone, it's Yggdrasil. Before we begin, I really would like to give a big thank you to Crimson Rosso for allowing me to participate in this collaboration. I always love sharing my thoughts on gaming with others and greatly enjoy being able to chime in on this video. So then, when thinking about RPGs or games that deserve a sequel, I had to step back and think not only on how some of the RPGs I've had the chance to experience resolved, but I also thought on if the theme of that game could carry onward strongly, or if it at least had a plausible direction to focus on after said conclusion. With all of this in mind, and after much back and forth, I settled on Live Alive, a game whose HD 2D remake I had the luxury to experience back in 2023. If you've never played or heard of this game, Live Alive first released in 1994 on the Super Famicom, published by Square. Nearly 20 years later in 2022, Square Enix published a full remake for all platforms, originally on the Switch and then everywhere else a year later, using the now far more familiar HD 2D sprite art and design. They even were able to have the award-winning composer Yoko Shimomura, who composed the original soundtrack, return for a fully remastered OST. As for the remake aspect, it focused on enhanced quality of life, brought in voice acting, and added an additional story chapter, which resulted in one of the greatest spectacles I've had the pleasure of going through in a video game in recent years. The main premise of the game is to experience the stories of 7 protagonists set in different times and eras throughout the world, be it the caveman era with some 1990s Japanese rom-com influence thrown in, a gritty American western town duel at sunrise, or as a charming robot that has to maneuver in a spacecraft with some unnerving happenings going on. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to pick a game deserving of a sequel that could carry on the themes of its predecessor, and for Live Alive, that theme is very boldly that in every timeline, a hero rises. I can still recall as I completed the original game how dearly I would love to see a sequel for Live Alive where new eras were brought into the fold that introduced a plethora of new settings along with their evil counterparts. Whether it be ancient curses abounding in the Aztec Empire or the sands of ancient Egypt, perhaps serving as a gladiator in Rome, or maybe settling disputes in a gold rush town in 1900s California, possibly even a dystopian tale set in a distant future. There is incredible possibility to be had with the bite-sized yet highly satisfying scenarios that Live Alive presents, which is why my hope is to one day see Live Alive 2 living a little livelier. But that is where I'm going to be ending my segment. Thank you once again to Crimson for allowing me to participate, and I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone else chooses. Cheers.
Hey guys, it's Nishqu here from the channel Nishqu Pops, and if you guys know me, you guys will know what my pick is probably going to be. And furthermore, I want to say that I will go so far as to say that my pick for the JRPG that deserves a sequel the most probably needed and still needs the sequel the most out of any other game on this list. I'm very excited to see what everyone else has picked, but I will say, out of any game on this list, Xenogears needed it the most. Xenogears 2 was in the concepts phase. It was something Tetsuya Takahashi and Soraya Saga really wanted to do, but the powers that be at Square Enix just made it literally impossible for them to make it happen, and it's just really sad. I've talked about the story of Xenogears' troubled development many times on my channel. There's many videos where I do talk about it. You can go and watch those, but on top of its rocky development cycle, its rushed development, Tetsuya Takahashi and his team felt really neglected in the eyes of many higher-ups in Square Enix. Many people like Hironobu Sakaguchi saw his talent and really supported him on his creative journey, but when the company really wanted to focus on tentpole titles like Final Fantasy and even push further into the multimedia platforms of CG movies, more creative, risk-taking, and ambitious projects like a Xenogears sequel were put to the side. And the two projects that really kind of set Tetsuya Takahashi off the edge were Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy Spirits Within, the CG movie. Final Fantasy VIII was great. It was a great success and a really awesome game by Yoshinori Kitase. But Spirits Within, I think many JRPG and Final Fantasy fans know that a lot of money went into that movie, and Square Enix put a lot of resources into that, and the return was just not good. I'm not saying Square should have gone in the direction of Xenogears 2 instead, but seeing a lot of the focus of Square's projects sticking to Final Fantasy and expanding that franchise even more into areas that weren't as necessarily relevant to the franchise is what made Tetsuya Takahashi promptly leave Squaresoft and start his own company, Monolith Soft. And of course, because of publishing rights and all that, he could still not make Xenogears 2. It was still impossible for him to do so. So then he started Xenosaga, and the rest is history. You guys know that, obviously. But the thing is, if you guys look in Xenogears Perfect Works, the gigantic encyclopedia of everything Xenogears lore, characters, story, all that, you guys might know that the present story of Xenogears takes place as episode 5 of a gigantically long timeline. And episode 6 is there. Episode 6 is part of the timeline, but we don't know what it could have been. We don't know what it would have been either. And there's not many hints in Perfect Works to point to what a sequel of Xenogears could have been as well. I have theories, I have thoughts, maybe I'll make a video on it someday, and there are some hints in the Xenoblade Chronicles series that point to what we could have seen in a Xenogears 2 or in episode 6. But even in Perfect Works, it is still shrouded in mystery. Am I a fan of that? Well, I still really feel bad for what Takahashi had to go through with the development of Xenogears and the cancellation of many projects, him having to move over to Monolith Soft, but I will say, after experiencing Xenoblade Chronicles, all the games, and the trilogy, and Xenoblade X, and all that, I feel like we got the best outcome. Monolith Soft going over to Nintendo and starting the Xenoblade trilogy and doing X as well. In the end, I'm still very happy, but I still gotta say, I'm dying to know what Xenogears 2 could have been, and I really wish that we still got to see it. Thank you so much, Crimson Rosso, for having me on this collab and allowing me to kind of talk about one of my favorite games of all time. If you guys haven't played Xenogears, like I say to everyone, drop whatever you're playing right now and play it, because it's literally that good. I'll see you guys back on my channel later.
Zoo here with Flipping the Switch, and I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank Crimson for putting together this wonderful group of people and thinking of me in terms of making this project. So with that said, in terms of my pick, let's go ahead and get to that. Do you like exploring the vastness of space? Do you enjoy interacting with a large assortment of alien characters? How about a ship-to-ship space battles? And no, I'm not talking about the Mass Effect series. No, this is Star Control 2, a 1992 joint by the legendary Toys for Bob, back then a two-man studio. Putting you in the boots of a group of humans who have returned from a desperate last-ditch gambit to end an interstellar war with the much more advanced Urquan, you arrive to a fully conquered Earth with an ancient alien warship capable of turning the tide of the conflict. From there, you're set loose in a universe of opportunity to explore and gather an alliance of various alien races to free the galaxy from your Urquan masters. Sound familiar? The game boasts a galaxy of literally thousands of star systems, full of enemies to fight, aliens to meet and trade with, and resources to secure. So whether you're rescuing the Zotfot Pick or recruiting the cowardly yet effective Spathy, there is always something for you to do in the vastness of space. An early victim of video game copyright dispute, I can only imagine what a true sequel to this could have looked like. But as it stands, on its own, it's an achievement that modern games have still not surpassed, and is one of my favorite pieces of media of all time, bar none. And oh, did I mention it's free? So give this one a go and get lost in the universe of possibility and potential.
Hey guys, it's Swice. Thank you so much to Crimson for having me on this video, because I got a cool JRPG I really want to talk about that I think really deserves a sequel, and that is Tokyo Zenadu. So Tokyo Zenadu is kind of like a mixture of games. It's from Falcom, and it's almost like a spin-off of some of their other series, but kind of has some Persona vibes to it. It really reminds me of an action Persona game. So the combat is honestly like a arcadey Dark Souls, and I know people say this a lot, the game feels like a Dark Souls combat system, but no, like the way you're dodging and stuff, and the way the enemies have their attack patterns and the bosses really does feel like a cartoon arcadey Dark Souls boss fight, and I love it. And another thing it does really cool is it was like the Genshin before Genshin, like the Wuthering Waves before Wuthering Waves. You character switch in battle so quickly, and you want to combine their moves for weakness, damage, and many other stacks of buffs, and it's always been really fun to me. And you go through the game and do a bunch of social links. Again, lots of Persona attributes here, but the story was really interesting, and the main characters Ko and Asuka are really fun to follow. Now the game has an EX version because it was originally on the Vita, and now you can get it on pretty much any console. You can even get it on the Switch now. It just released on a new version there. And it ends on a cliffhanger. I'm not going to go into any spoilers or details or anything like that, but the game was so well made and, in my opinion, deserves the sequel that it set it up to be. And the only downside was kind of the budget, and even then it wasn't that bad. It's just Falcom doesn't have giant budgets like some other big studios making JRPGs, but I think now with even more technology, the sequel would just be awesome because this game had a lot of great ideas to it, and I would love to see this cast of characters again.
Hello everyone, Kuscular Sky here. Big thank you to Crimson for putting this collab together and for asking me to be a part of it. It really means a lot, and I'm happy to be a part of something with so many great and cool creators. A game, or well, series, that I think deserves a sequel is the Sly Cooper series. Sly is my favorite 3D platformer series, and one of my favorite series of all time, if we're being honest. It was one of the 3 pillars of 3D platformers on the PlayStation 2, along with Jak and Daxter and Ratchet & Clank. While the latter is still going strong with the newer releases, both Jak and Daxter and Sly Cooper haven't had a game in years. And I think that's a shame. As I said, the Sly series is my favorite 3D platformer series, and probably my favorite platformer series in general in all of gaming. Its unique art style and stealth-based gameplay compound together with a fun and lovable cast of characters and a phenomenal soundtrack to make a one-of-a-kind experience. One that I haven't really seen replicated since, at least not from any of the more modern platformers that I've played. Sly 1 was a fairly traditional 3D platformer, but 2 onwards created its own style, mixing small open hub areas with sets of missions which all led up to completing a large job or heist at the end of an episode. And those hub areas are some of my favorites in all of gaming. The vibes are just on point. From Paris and Rajan's Palace in Sly 2, to Venice and Holland in Sly 3, to the Wild West in Arabia in Sly 4. The combination of the music and the visuals in conjunction with the level design made it just so much fun to wander around and explore these areas. I want this series to make a comeback, not just because of the unique gameplay loop, which I feel hasn't been filled in its absence, but also because Sly 4 ended in a cliffhanger. Now, Sly 3 is my favorite in the series, and I think that it was a perfect end to the original trilogy, both in its story and gameplay, with the last section culminating in one of the best levels in the series, that being the Gauntlet of the Ancestors, which I felt was a celebration of the trilogy as a whole. Regardless of that, however, I still really liked Sly 4. I do agree that some of the charm of the original trilogy was lost in the handover from Sucker Punch to Sanzaru, but Sly 4 is still a ton of fun. So yeah, the game I think should get a sequel is Sly Cooper. Technically Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, but at this point I will take anything. Not only do I want to see the continuation of the story that was set up over a decade ago, but I also want to be able to explore new cool hub areas with the Cooper gang and play some fun levels with a stealth platformer fusion. Sly Cooper is one of the series that forms the backbone of Sony in my opinion, and I would love to see it return.
And with that, we are at the end of the video. Gonna take another second at the end here to thank everybody who came and joined me. I'm not really someone who does collabs a whole lot in comparison to other creators, so it's always nice to find some time to invite some of my homies and, just let them take the stage here. And like I said before, if you want to check out their content, go look down below in the pinned comment. All their links will be there. And if you liked what you saw on this channel and want to see more, make sure to check out my channel by liking and subbing down below. We're almost at 1K, so I would appreciate the supports. And what do you think deserves a sequel? Let me know down below. Thank you guys, have a good day, and I'll see you around for more RPG content.